Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on the place you are listening to us. On behalf of Tecnicelpa board, please feel welcome to our third section of innovation talks entitled Packaging and Recycling Products. Before starting the section, please let me spend a few minutes to present Tecnicelpa Association. For those of you that have been with us since the first event that we made last week, I hope that with this presentation you are already ready to become our associates. For the others that are listening to us for the first time, I just have a few slides that you can see the highlights of our association. So let me share with you. So, born in 1980, Tecnicelpa Association was started in a time where communication was done by phone, not by Facebook, by Teams, by Zoom, or any other platform. So, the first aim of this association was to create a relation between the technicians belonging to the pulp and paper industry. Soon after that, the association realized that they could deliver also technical skilled training. So after 40 years, we realized, as stated on the slide, that knowledge and relation is really in our DNA. But let's talk about what we have done on these years. So far, from the 80s till now, we made 25 international conferences, including more than 600 scientific works produced by more than 2,000 researchers. We have published 66 technical magazines, near 4 per year, in a paper form or digital form. Every year, the association promotes 5 to 6 training events based on technical skills, even small things or more complicated ones like new technologies. Let's talk about Tecnicelpa conferences. Tecnicelpa conference is the place and the time to share knowledge, to share research, and is the time where academy and the industry meet together. So you can see that on the slide. But it's also the time to enjoy and to have close relations and friendship. In new times, we have been forced to use new technologies, but the event also took place. But now we are looking each time to have an event in the coming years where people can join together again and reclaim this relationship. Besides that, regarding publishing, we may say, as stated on the slide, that our first number was issued in 1999. Since then, we have publishing 66 magazines, but always focused on issues that are important for the industry, like sustainable forest management or plastics replacement in the coming years, or now circular economy. But let's return to our DNA. So basic work for Tecnicelpa is to do training. You can see an examples on the slides of basic training relating to forest operations, relating to industrial equipment like recovery boilers, wastewater treatment, and more recently tissue production. These are just a few examples among the numerous events that we have made in the last years. So, last but not least, let me present our chairman for this third section. Being one of the most known persons in our industry, Mr. Dolores Ferreira is a chemical engineer from Outi University. He has devoted a substantial part of his 47 years of career to the forest section. He worked for some of the biggest Portuguese companies like Sonai, Soporcel, Raiz, and Portucel, now known as the Navigator Company. And in the last 20 years for the Outi Group, where he developed and managed the project of bleached pulp in the now named biotech company and his integration into tissue paper. The biomass business within the group and the dissolved pulp project of Caima Mill was also part of his work. He retired in December 2020 and now enjoys life as a senior consultant for strategy operations. So, welcome again, enjoy the event, and Mr. Dolores Ferreira, the screen is yours.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, João, for your kind words. Good afternoon to everybody. We are going to start this third session of this Tecnicelpa Innovation Talks. And today we are going to talk about packaging and recycled products. We have the pleasure to have four excellent speakers this afternoon. The name of them are Dawson from DS Smith, Gustavo Duarte from Sappi Europe, Manuel Delgado from Papeleira Coreboard, and Outi Juntti from J Partners. This last name, I will have the confirmation from the speaker that I'm telling the name correctly. Thank you. So we have these four speakers, and we organize the session this way. We will listen to the four speakers. You have the possibility in the meantime to ask questions using the Q&A that you have in your computer. And after listening to the four speakers, we have a common session of Q&A where all the questions are welcomed. We are going to start with our first speaker, Dawson, and Greg is the Group Director of Corporate Affairs and Sustainability of the Smith Group since December 2017, and is also responsible for internal and external communications. And before joining the Smith, Greg held senior corporate affairs leadership roles for some of the world's leading brands like Ford Motor Company, Samsung Electronics, Virgin Atlantic Airways. Greg, the floor is yours.
For the welcome, Chairman, and thank you everyone for inviting me and for me being here today. It's great to be here, and I look forward to talking to you about DS Smith's approach to sustainability and what inspires the company in what is a very fast-changing world. So DS Smith is a packaging, paper and recycling company that 100 years ago is listed on the FTSE 100 stock exchange in London, but operates in 34 countries with over 30,000 employees. We operate predominantly in the food and drink and the FMCG areas. And of course, we have one of the biggest industrial assets in Portugal, which is our Viana paper mill, and many recycling and packaging facilities across the country and in Iberia, in the wider Iberia region. So that is DS Smith. And when I look back to around 2018, the company had grown maybe around 10 times the size in 10 years. And we had recently purchased a big company in the United States of America, and we purchased Europack, which was a leading paper packaging company in Iberia and France and Italy. So we had suddenly grown to a very large size and was, as I say, listed for the first time in some of the UK and the world's biggest companies. So that was a time where we had really grown up as an adult business, if you like. And of course, we were working with the world's biggest brands across Europe and North America, and they trusted us to be providing a world-class paper and packaging services to those businesses. So we had grown as a company, but then when you look at the outside world, the world was changing very fast. And we have seen this week with the COP26 news and announcements that the world is maybe changing faster than we can keep up. We saw back then, a number of years ago, there were many documentaries, The Blue Planet, that the BBC distributed throughout the world, a documentary about the way the climate change was having a major impact on our planet. There was, of course, a huge backlash against plastics, as the understanding of how plastics is pervading the oceans and everybody's waters and life. There was a big focus on plastics. But then even in our area today of paper and packaging, it's become much more of a focus. And there are many customers of ours working towards a zero packaging strategy. And if that's not disruption in your business, then tell me what is. And then, of course, e-commerce is becoming more and more popular throughout the world. In all of our big cities, in Portugal, in Iberia, in Europe, and even North America, people are shopping more online, and packaging is becoming the center of consumers' minds, because we all have packaging in our homes, whereas maybe 10 years before, they didn't have that. So consumers are very much thinking about having a more convenient life and having more time, having more convenience with e-commerce. But consumers don't want to sacrifice the environment at the same time. And I think that is a lot of challenge that our customers are trying to struggle with today. How do we use digital to transform people's lives whilst not sacrificing the environment, and the speed of change is not compromising the location, the communities that we live in? And we were thinking as a company back in those times, every single employee at DS Smith, we need to be thinking outside of our four walls. Of course, manufacturing, we are experts at perfecting what we make. And of course, we focus all of our energy in providing the best products and services. But when the world is changing so fast, we have to understand that change so we can help others stay ahead of what is a very changing, fast changing world. And we said, look, we need to get our employees thinking outside, but also let's look forward about where we think the world is going to go and the impact that that's going to have on packaging. So we created our company purpose of redefining packaging for a changing world. And the reason that I tell you this is because this is what is stimulating our thinking, stimulating our innovation, and actually positioning how we go to market with our products and services. And the essence really of redefining packaging for a changing world is how do we change the role of packaging in society to enable the world to keep moving and for our customers to keep serving our consumers in a very different environment. But I think something radical has to happen. The world is changing ever faster. And if you think of all these home shopping vehicles that are delivering parcels every day in our busy streets, in our busy cities where emissions are too high and we're missing all of our targets. With e-commerce growing at 50% year after year, something has to be different. We have to do something different. We know the population has grown, doubled in the last 50 years, and population is growing ever faster. So we have to not only look at our emissions, but we have to change our behavior. And that's why we're very much focusing on the circular economy. We know of the climate challenge that 50% or 55% of meeting the climate challenge and keeping global temperatures at 1.5 degrees above the industrial revolution, the temperature of the industrial revolution, that's 55% is emissions. And you would have heard that all week at COP so far. We must reduce our emissions. But actually, the rest of that challenge, the 45%, is how we live our lives, is how you live your life, I live my life, and how our businesses have to change. And that is the circular economy. You know, we can't keep extracting materials from the ground, making something, and then throwing it away. There has to be a circular way of life. So DS Smith thought, okay, well, how do we do that? And we brought in some help from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is one of the world's leading thinkers on the circular economy. And we decided that, you know, our approach, we wanted to design out waste and pollution as much as we could from our packaging and our materials. We had to keep products and materials in use for longer. So how do we keep those fibers, keep going around those loops? We believe our fibers can be recycled up to 25 times if taken care of in the cycle. And of course, regenerate our natural systems. Of course, we have forests in Portugal and Spain and beyond. So how do we maintain those and actually get them to flourish in a more beautiful world? And then we started to bring together our strengths. So our box-to-box recycling model, the idea is that if you use a box, maybe a big brand sends a parcel out of their warehouse, within 14 days in many parts of our operations, we should be able to send that parcel, or that parcel should be sent to the customer. We should be able to pick that waste cardboard up, recycle it, take it to our paper mill and convert that into recycled paper and then into another box ready for distribution within 14 days. That is our offer to our customers, and that is a strength, a circular strength. Design is fundamental. I'm sure many of you know, when we're trying to tackle this circular economy, it starts at the design stage. And that is where the Ellen MacArthur Foundation trains 700 of our designers, all of our designers throughout the world, on circular design. So every package is started with its reuse in mind, its reuse or second life in mind. So we created circular design principles with the Ellen MacArthur. And then thirdly, we brought our circular ready proposition of how were we going to, what was our offer to the customer? And that is having 100% recyclable packaging. We're 99.4% today, and we aim to get to 100% in 2023, which is 2 years ahead of the industry standard. Look at reuse opportunities. We do some, we could do much more. Making use of every fibre, using design to maximise fibre. Removing plastics was a huge, huge opportunity for us, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. And then providing that closed loop operations. If you're one of the world's biggest brands, they must be aware, they must know where their packaging is going all the way through the cycle. So one of the first areas we started on was plastic replacement. We know there's 189 pieces, 70 billion plastic units used every year in Europe in supermarkets alone. So whether you're displaying cheese and yogurts or taking out ready meals, those plastic units are 70 billion per year, which is equivalent to 189 units per person in Europe. And with our engineering capability and design, we've set about trying to replace as much as we can with fully recyclable cardboard. We're targeting 1 billion units of replaced by 2025, and we are already 120 million units into that journey in the first year. And again, it's an opportunity for our business to do good, but actually to grow our business too. And you'll see here examples of a lot around food and drink or fresh produce is a very big area that we've started. But beyond that, we talk about circular design and having the conversation with our customers. These are our circular design metrics, and it's an opportunity to have a conversation with our customers about all of these areas and scoring their packaging in all these dimensions, and then having the conversation about how we get those areas green, whether it's recyclability, utilization of materials, renewable sources. We have that discussion with customers to help provide a more sustainable supply chain, sustainable offer to our customers. So that is another area of how we're innovating and using services. And then finally, sustainability for us has to be an opportunity to grow. Of course, we want to do the right thing and make sure that we are being better for society. But we know we can be even better and more sustainable if it is growing our business too. So we look in these 5 key areas, of which, of course, you'll see in number 2 is the innovation, where we are looking to the outside world, to the way the world is changing, new materials, new methods, new design to continue to grow our business. And that is it from me. So thank you very much for your time. And I'm happy to take questions, if not now, later on with the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Now is the time for Gustavo Duarte. Gustavo, he has been working on product development for over a decade, ever since he graduated his postdoctoral studies. Always connected to the forest-based industry as a true industry's child. In the last 6 years, working on the development of functional papers and packaging solutions at Sappi in the Netherlands. Before that, he worked for Stora Enso in Germany, also focusing on new product development, but in the natural fiber composite field. He loves technical challenges, particularly those that lead to products that can leave a positive footprint in the environment. Gustavo, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much, and say good evening, everybody, and all the people that are going to be presenting so far. So great. Now, after having a natural native speaker of English, now all the foreigners come in speaking English. So that's, you've set the high bar. Before I start, I would like to say hello to everybody, and actually, I would like to, on behalf of myself, on behalf of Sappi, say hello, but this is actually, a second hello. It's hello again. You have already, we've already met today. Throughout your day, for sure, you've already been in contact with the Sappi product, whether it was during your morning routine or even the clothing that you are now wearing, whether it was during breakfast or on your commute to work, you have in one way or another been exposed to a Sappi product, very likely today. Or maybe during your workday, and now maybe even during this conference, now, or if you went grocery shopping already today, or potentially, who knows, during your lunch break, you already were in contact with Sappi, or one of the products for Sappi, one of the 10 products that we have actually out of Sappi Europe, one of the products of the 10 product groups we have of Sappi today. So I would like to say welcome to everybody and say hello. And now let's then actually start our conversation today. So we were asked to talk a little bit about innovation and particularly in packaging and recyclability and the circular economy. So I prepared a presentation which we've called now Paper Packaging Innovations for a Circular World. And today I am going to talk about three things. I'm going to do a very quick, very quick brief introduction of Sappi. And I'm going to talk about now our innovation and the fact that our innovation has sustainability at its core. Very similar. Now, Greg, it's great to see that now all the industry is going in the same direction. And then going to go a little bit more specifically into innovation and functional papers. So let's start by looking a little bit at Sappi and Sappi at a glance. We are basically a little bit all over the globe. We are a global company. We have three major regions of where we operate: North America, South Africa, and in Europe. We are overall in a network of 150 countries. We have almost 13,000 employees, and we've been around for 165 years. Now, just in numbers, because in every single presentation we need to show some numbers. So these are all data from 2019, because everybody wants to forget the last 2 years they ever existed because of COVID. So a little bit of Sappi numbers, where we are focusing, and we are market leader in graphical papers, dissolving wood pulp and packaging and specialty papers. Particularly the last one is a very important pillar for us, and we've been growing 12% year on year. And as Greg just mentioned, now there's a huge potential for paper in the field of packaging and to replace some plastic alternatives. So taking into the dive into the development innovation. Now, for us, sustainability is at the core. And for us, we need to be able to satisfy the needs of today without compromising now the next generation's possibilities and the world as it is. And the COP26 that is now on all the news is proof of that. So sustainability is really at the core of innovation. And we want to be able to create new products and new solutions for people to use, but in a very sustainable and very environmentally aware way. So we procure materials in a responsible way. We incorporate sustainability from the ground up in all of our operations, but also actually in designing of new products. We take sustainability right from the get-go. Sustainability strategy at Sappi now has its pillar in the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. We have chosen those 7 SDGs as our main SDGs that we believe we can positively influence. And we have now our targets for 2025 highlighted. I'm going to not read them all. I'm sure this presentation will be made available later on so people can take a look at it. Now, but this is a little bit our targets that we want to do in those 7 SDGs categories and where we want to be by 2025, which is just around the corner, really. Now, from a development, I mean, we are a fiber-based company, so we want to use the full use of trees and make the best of trees. As I am sure everybody on this audience knows, that the 3 main components of trees are cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. And we want to use that to, as much as we can, to the best of our abilities, to make new products that are then sustainable and more environmentally friendly than materials that currently we still use. A little bit of the products that we currently have. So we have, as I said, we are now we're market leaders in graphical papers. In packaging and specialties, a very big field for us. And we have new things coming up in the pipeline. Symbio is actually Sappi's natural fiber composite material that we're scaling up now. and we have our first generation fiber composite. We are now looking into making chemicals from sugars, chemicals from lignin, and of course now we're looking into Velida, which is our brand name for nanocellulose, which is actually a topic that should be quite hot for the next decades. But let's go a little bit deeper, and let's go a little bit closer look at innovation and functional papers, and which is the packaging part of the topic that brings us here today. We decided to do this already several years ago. This is a journey actually that Sappi started about around 2014, and we had some people, unfortunately I cannot take credit, I was not at Sappi at the time, but we had people that had the foresight to address now the plastic pollution of oceans. And actually we already knew, and there was already signs at the time, that now by 2050 it is expected that we have 3 kilos of plastic per kilo of fish in the oceans. So this is a place where we believe that Sappi can actually have a huge contribution. So at this point in time, there's a very interesting infographics from Reuters. And if you go to Reuters and you Google Reuters and drowning plastic, you actually see that every day we sell 1.3 billion bottles of plastic materials, and that's only bottles. So we have a huge amount of plastic out there, and some of it we can start replacing now today. And we do believe that fiber-based packaging is actually a renewable, sustainable, good alternative to some of these packages. So what is Sappi's development vision when it comes to flexible packaging? Nowadays, we have in the shelves of the supermarkets, non-recyclable multi-layer composite structures, can be more or less complex depending on the protection needs of the goods and the food that they need to protect. And we believe in our vision that we can actually have recyclable functional papers, which is actually a reality of today. And as the whole industry and the chemical suppliers also evolve, we then imagine that we will be able to have now a recyclable and bio-based functional papers in the near future. So we are in this journey of a transformation from a non-recyclable multi-layer films to a recyclable functional papers and bio-based recyclable functional papers then later down the road. But what are actually functional papers? Now it's a key. Now I talk a lot about it. What are functional papers? So these are basically papers that have an active functionality, which can be heat sealability and or barrier properties. Typical barrier properties that a functional paper would be able to deliver and to protect the goods are grease resistance, moisture, vapor, oxygen, aroma, and or mineral oil. Combination thereof them, they can be heat sealable or not. And the definition that we use, or what is for us a functional paper, is then this is a functionality that we impart to paper by means of a coating, of a water-based borne coating, rather than an extrusion or a lamination, which is very typical nowadays. It has been so for decades in the market, and which are very difficult to recycle structures and difficult to put it back in the circular economy. And now when it comes to barrier coatings, we can actually have materials that are monolayered or multi-layered depending on the needs of protection of the different products. But now what are the benefits? Now, is this really the right thing to do? Now, and the fact here is now as evolution goes, and this will become better, but functional papers have an improved recyclability versus composite structures, which can be ultimately very, very difficult or impossible to recycle. Now, they use a much lower amounts of coatings and polymer coatings than traditional extrusion lamination, and it makes it easier to recover fibers. This also means that there are very big improvements possible in terms of CO2 and footprint. So climate change is something that we can also address, not just ocean pollution. And depending on application, and of course this needs to be taken always case by case and application by application. No, but actually already today there are products on the market that lead, and I have here an example from an article from earlier in the beginning of the year, that actually already have up to 75% reduction on the CO2 footprint when we compare the incumbent plastic material with a functional paper. And of course, it's also a much better alignment with European policies, now part of Green Deal and SUPD. Then I have my last slide here about SUPD. It's a huge, big slide. It's not meant for people to read. On the left-hand side, you have extracts of the directive and the guidelines. And on the right-hand side, in blue, we say basically, what does this mean? Now, and according to the SUPD guidelines, actually plastic is being defined now as a polymer, and it's pretty clear what we understand as a polymer that can function as a main structural component of the final product, And there's then a list of exceptions and exclusions. So very simplistically saying, a plastic is a polymer that can act as a main structural component, minus the exceptions. And some of the exceptions are non-chemically modified polymers, inks, paints, adhesives, binders, processing aids, and retention aids. So these are all things that the guideline at this point excludes. The way that Sappi looks at this is that actually at this point in time, waterborne coatings that we apply to create functional papers, actually, they do not provide a structural element to the final product, and they cannot survive on their own. Therefore, at this point in time, this is a little bit of gray area, but we actually at this point consider that waterborne coatings and therefore functional papers they do not play, they don't have a main structural component role, and therefore actually should not be considered plastic. How this is going to be implemented and interpreted at country level throughout the European, we will find out over the next 12 months or so. So basically, that's a little bit what I wanted to present to you all, and I'm looking forward for any questions and the discussions. So I would like to thank you all for the attention.
Thank you, Gustavo. Just remember our audience. Okay. Just a comment to our audience. Please place your questions using the Q&A that you have available in your computer. And at the end of session, we will have this discussion, and all these questions will be raised to our speakers. I think we have Manuel not online. Outi, are you at your presentation?
Yes, I am.
Very good. So we change a little bit our program. Instead of having Portugal speaking, we will have Finland, and Juntti will make a presentation. Outi is a partner of J Partners, a boutique management consulting company specialized in forest products industry. She has over 20 years of experience in working for and advising the global paper and packaging companies and their finances in strategy, in strategic, operational, product development, and M&A-related questions. She holds master's degrees in paper technology and economics and is currently working on a PhD at Outi University, along with her consulting engagements. The screen is yours.
Muito obrigada.
Oh, thank you.
Boa tarde. Well, that's about how much I know Portuguese at the moment, but hopefully we'll learn soon. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. My first touching point to the Portuguese pulp and paper industry goes back to 20 years when I visited the Deja mill and Acacia sack paper plant. And thank you for Greg and Gustavo for the very good presentation. It's funny, we didn't align these presentations, but I couldn't help other than nodding. And I'm probably going to be touching a lot of the same things that you have already mentioned. But great minds think alike, and I think we are all facing very interesting times in this industry. Can you take the next slide? Just very quickly, we obviously are in a very different league than Sappi or DS Smith. So we are a small boutique consulting company with 3 partners and some 10 experts globally. So these are the 2 gentlemen with whom we have established this company. We all have worked more than 20 years in this industry, and we love this industry from all our heart, and we love to work for and help our global clientele in any engagements they might have. And packaging has been my passion for quite some time. Can you take the next slide? We've talked quite a lot about packaging already today, and I think it's an interesting topic, and it's also a very big business. And when we talk about packaging, we obviously have to think about that from various angles. And if we if we focus on two angles, if we focus on applications and we focus on materials, we find out that the consumers are actually play quite critical role in the global packaging. So if we think about that, food, beverages, health, cosmetics, and other consumer packaging, they made up to 70% of the global packaging market, which, by the way, is over $9 billion already today and growing quite rapidly. So what does it mean? It means that we as consumers, like Gustav showed earlier, we face packaging in all our faces during a day. And that's why what we as consumers decide, what we as consumers would like to have, what kind of decisions we make play a critical role. But I wouldn't also neglect this industry side of the packaging. Like Greg talked about the e-commerce, we do see an increasing need in, let's say, other than consumer packages, so retailer, transition packaging, and also in industry applications. So quite interesting mix. All these pieces of the pie are growing. When we talk about then on the material side, I think we can basically divide this into two main components. It is the fiber-based packaging, which we all love and work for, and then we have plastics, and then we have metal and glass. And obviously, metal and glass are kind of losing their share in the global packaging use for many reasons, but then it's kind of a dual camp between fiber-based packaging and plastics. Fiber-based packaging is actually quite useful and versatile material. If you take the next slide, we can have a little bit look on where fiber-based packaging can be used. Can you take the next slide, please? Both Greg and Gustavo already touched upon on where we see fiber-based packaging, and we can really say that it's a kind of a multi-talent as a packaging material. We can use fiber-based packaging in all our everyday food items. We can use for liquid, we can use it for chocolate bars, we can use it for dry food, we can use it for frozen or chilled food. So basically there's not a single thing in the food sector we couldn't use fiber-based packaging for. We can also splurge with fiber-based packaging. So fiber-based packaging, because of its nice printability and purity and versatility, plays an important role in the luxury packaging segment. We can have fiber-based packaging on the go. So cups, plates, wrappers, you name it. They all can be used based on fiber-based packaging. Fiber-based packaging also is a very important part of retailers. We see fiber-based packs, we have displays, we have retail-ready packaging. So that is really where both paper sacks and bags and corrugated board can be of great help. And obviously, when we talk about the global retailer trends, like Greg mentioned, the e-commerce is one of the most fastest growing segments or industries in the whole world. And there, of course, much of that is relying on fiber-based packaging. And we shouldn't neglect about the industrial packaging. It plays an important role also in various industrial applications. And what can be said out of all these packages we see here in this picture or slide, they all can be recycled, they all can be reused. And like we heard earlier today, Greg's company is already using a 14-day cycle. So they can be recycled quite quickly and they can be recycled quite efficiently. So really a multi-talent. Can you take the next slide? Thank you. And what is also beauty in the global packaging market and trends is that all the key drivers are pointing towards the use of fiber-based packaging. First of all, packaging as a market is growing. Of course, there's a strong correlation between the overall economic growth, and that means that over 60% of growth takes place in Asia Pacific. But we are not standing idle here in Europe or not in North America. So we still, as a mature markets, are developing very positively as well. Consumers and our lifestyle has is an important driver for packaging, and especially eating on the go, increasing awareness, sustainability. Those are the drivers which are all pointing towards fiber-based packaging. We talked about the trade, and when we see about what are the key items for the global retailers and retail logistics, is really have a very safe, recyclable secondary and tertiary packaging. And of course, like you said, e-commerce is one of the main drivers. In here, both paper sacks, bags, and corrugated board is a kind of irreplaceable. So not a single other solution can do the same job. And of course, finally, also legislation is working towards sustainable packaging. Gustavo already mentioned about single-use plastic directive, and we have other legislation and other regulations that are also pointing towards fiber-based packaging. So nothing else but positive drivers and trends for fiber-based packaging in the site at the moment. Can you take the next slide, please? I think we here in Europe cannot bypass any packaging-related presentation today without talking about single-use plastic directive. Gustavo already mentioned and talked about the technical side of it. I'm here showing some pictures and illustration about the market side of it. So basically, it's a very complicated directive, as directive always are, but there are some clear guidelines. So basically, we had this directive is pointing towards three things. There's a products that are simply being banned, and in here you see some of them. So straws, cutlery, oxo-degradable or EBS expanded styrofoam cups, they are all bans. And what it means that when they are banned, the brand owners, retailers, catering companies, they have to find new solutions. And again, the paper industry has been quite quick. So, for example, paper-based straws have entered to the market. More and more companies are producing paper cups, and of course, we have also all kind of fiber-based, bio-based cutlery. So this is kind of a clear indication. It's a clear act where fiber-based packaging simply takes over and is being used and utilized and approved by the brand owners. Can you take the next slide, please? But of course, the brand owners are not standing idle, and luckily our industry today is working very closely with the leading brand owners. So like we heard from Greg's presentation, they are working on the brand owner side. Sappi is working on the brand owner side. Basically, all the leading fiber-based packaging companies are working with brand owners, and brand owners do take actions. And then here we see some of the examples. Heinz, for example, a big packaging company producing all kind of food items, they decided to go to replace all their shrink wraps in their soup and other cans and to use fiber-based packaging, which can be recycled again and again. Samsung already 2 years ago made a decision that it will abandon all the plastic packaging in its portfolio, and they will go towards bio-based or other more sustainable solutions. Coca-Cola has also decided to give up shrink wraps and is using different kind of fiber-based solutions. Here is an example of one of them. So these are really major impact. And when companies like Heinz, Samsung, or Coca-Cola make a decision, it's not impacting only Europe. It has a global impact. And these are also kind of leaders and pioneers. So other brands are following what these big brands are doing. So the snowball effect we can start seeing. Can you take the next slide, please? It was the previous slide. Thank you. So we already heard about what DS Smith and Sappi are doing, and then I here have one of the examples which Gustavo already talked about. So companies are not staying idle. So companies are really innovative today, and they are working together with brand owners. So not just doing innovations for innovation's sake, but also because there's a need and there's a need for cooperation in the brand owner side. So here are some of the examples. So we have seen innovative design. This is a Metsäboard's new lid for paper cups. So basically paper lids are replacing plastic lids. Gustavo knows this product quite well. Obviously, this is a very innovative new solution for snack bars together with Sappi, Nestlé, and Constantia Flexibles. So again, a beautiful example of industry cooperation, and an end product which has predominantly been packed in plastics is now going towards paper. Some companies are also thinking out of the box. This is the paper bottle from Billerud-Korsnäs. So all kind of new solutions are entered into the market, and they are not entering just as an laboratory examples. They are entering as a real commercial solutions, which is great. Can you take the next slide, please? So if there are 4 things I would like you to remember from my presentation is, first of all, packaging is a global business. It's a growth business. Fiber-based packaging, you can do whatever solutions you like, so they are both versatile and sustainable. And the leading brand owners are now really serious taking actions to replace plastics with fiber or bio-based products. And of course, also legislations and voluntary restrictions are opening further opportunities, like plastic bags. Today, over 70 countries in the world have already banned plastic bags. And companies are really actively developing and investing into new solutions. So there's a real innovation and investment boom in that front. Thank you so much for your time, and happy to take any questions you might have.
Well, thank you, Outi. It was a very, very broad presentation, very interesting for all of us. And now Manuel Delgado is back. He was lost in the middle of something, but now he's back. And Manuel Delgado is a paper. Manuel Delgado is our Industrial Director and Research and Development Manager of the Artes Group, which owns Papeleira Coreboard. He was previously working for Prado Cartolinas de Lausanne, and well, he has been always devoted to this paper and the packaging area since he came out of the university. Manuel, you have the screen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dolores Ferreira, and a special thanks to Tecnicelpa for the initiative and the invitation to participate in these innovation talks. I will summarize what we have been doing. In my presentation, I will make a brief of Artes Group, a very young group that works in paper recycling and integrates converters in the manufacture of tubes, mandrels, and protective edges. This is a specific market where the manufacture of paper focus on heavy weights, with Papeleira, an already secular company, and in 2016 abandoning the corrugated board packaging line, and has been specializing in technology and human resources in the manufacture of Coreboard. My agenda for today is I have to present a group of Artes overview, circular economy and sustainable in the Coreboard paper, and in the innovation and development projects ongoing, namely Industry 4.0, energy efficiency and water use, recycling of complex paper coated with PA and PP, supply of alternative fibers to paper for recycling, and convert paper recycling rejects into energy. And in the end, key challenge for innovation. Artes Paper Group is the leading player in Coreboard, cores, and edges in edges protectors in segment in Iberia. The group is composed by one unit to manufacture fully recycled cardboard paper in Papeleira mill, and by 4 paper converting units that produce paper cores and edges protectors largely from the Papeleira's cardboard. The paper mill Papeleira is near Porto, Portugal, and the paper converting units are located in Porto, Portugal, Spiral Park PT, and Cartagola, San Sebastián, Spiral Park Sicarsa, and Valencia and Balpac, Spain. This allows the group to cover 3 highly industrialized regions in the Iberian Peninsula. In 2020, Papeleira recycled 6,000 tons of waste paper into Coreboard that was later transformed into cores, edges protectors, and other cardboard applications. Sales to paper converting units represent 50% of the Papeleira production in the last year, with the growth potential up to 70%. Artes Paper Group is composed by 1 paper mill and 4 cores and edges protectors producers, with units located in north of Portugal, Basque Country, and Valencia. That is the map of the Iberian Peninsula and the place where it stay all plants. The group is directly or indirectly exposed to non-cyclical markets. Papeleira sells monthly to other players in the paper converting industry. Cardboard paper intended for the production of tubes, ends, protectors, and similar applications. Core tissue, a special cardboard paper for tissue manufacturers, distributed can the standard cardboard and allow for easier use in tissue applications. I take this opportunity to clarify that the difference between tubes and mandrels. The difference is in the thickness of the wall. Up to 3 millimeters thick are tubes, for example, those used in tissue, and above 3 millimeters are mandrels, for example, those used in the paper industry and the plastic film. Paper cores and edges. The cores and edges protectors produced sell by players in diverse industries: paper, food, packaging, printing, hospitality, textile, plastics, metal, home products, whenever it is necessary to roll up a product. Paper cores, spiral or parallel paper cores, standard or customized, produce high-performance cores for extreme loads or surface refined cores for highly sensitive wound goods. And edges protectors, cardboard edges for diverse use, support packaging, protection, and transport of goods in logistic applications. And that is our program of the circular of our business, a perfect sustainable circularity. We can start with a recycled paper that has a multiple sources. Sorting centers, supermarkets, manufacturing, and industry. We give a preference local supply with a limit of 550 kilometers in order to reduce the carbon footprint. We have we have in your photovoltaic plants, for self-consumption, a stock preparation to recycle difficult papers, a specific machine to produce cardboard, allowing production up to 700 grams. We are working on the project to convert waste from the recycle into steam for drying the paper. In our converting units, we provide technology and be the best what we do. We know that in the end of products, lives they come back to us. In innovation and development, we are strong in the implementation of concepts of Industry 4.0. Begin a recent group based on large investment in the last 5 years. All of these are based on the most modern technologies and integrated systems in the concepts of Industry 4.0. Another area of innovation, we have several projects underway with a view to optimize water and energy source. We work to be the coreboard producer with the lowest specific water consumption that currently is at 4 cubic meters per ton, with a tendency to down. We have a photovoltaic facility to self-consumption with the will to expand. We monitorize online the specific consumption of steam, energy, and water at the different phases of the process. In all investments made, we selected the best available technology, the most and the efficient. We are also studying ways to reduce our impact in the environment by converting waste into energy by pyrolysis and gasification process. With this implementation, we want reducing the landfill deposits, reduce the carbon emissions related to the waste transport, and reducing the use of natural gas and directly the carbon emissions. We innovate in the recycling of complex paper with polyethylene and polypropylene. We have tested the last times. We have stock preparation where we introduce the paper to recycle with allows us to recycle complex paper coated PA, polyethylene, or in 1 or 2 sites, paper cups. We have the ability to recycle complexes cardboard with mono or B-coated polypropylene, specifically a pastry basis. Another area where we are focused is to obtain fibers from other different sources of production. We are analyzing the waste of the pulp and paper industry. Coreboard, high weight, is a product that is possible to incorporate lower quality of fibers in the consumption in relation with the whiteness and resistance against other packaging, tissue, and printing and writing papers. A source of fibers in analysis are the fibers resulting from the wastewater of treatment fluids resulting from the manufacturers of pulp and printing and writing papers. Another alternative of fibers with fiber content are the tailing through the cooking process of the wood, the cooked sheet. And to finish my presentation, I leave some ideas and trends for innovation. Are we going to adapt more and more the technology of recycling plants to process complex papers with polymer resins, hot melt, glues, metals, and others? There is an increasing trend to produce paper that has characteristics that can replace plastic, where are not developing products that will not be able to be sorted and cannot be recycled. By increasing recycling rates and some pressure to not incorporate virgin fibers, we will not reach a point where the quality of the fibers that reach us is already very degraded. And for finish, it is no longer time to look for alternative fibers to use on a large scale from the origin of wood for the manufacture of paper. It is not time to explore the sea. And with that, I finish my presentation. Thank you, and I will be able to questions that I have.
Thank you, Manuel Delgado, for your comprehensive presentation, and ending in the bottom of the sea, I guess. Now we are in our session for questions, and we have already some questions from our audience today. And the first is to Greg from João Martins, and the question is: Are recycling operations capable of getting enough old paper for a total circular packaging economy? Do you have raw material? Is the question, I guess.
That's a great question, and the answer changes. I think certainly through the pandemic, we've seen certainly the supply of recycled material getting more stretched as people are not in offices and daily life is not, and retail was not the same as it was before. I think so. Overall, we recycle more than we make. So we have a net positive recycling position. We collect and recycle more material than we actually make in packaging, which is good from our perspective. But there's a really big challenge in many of our countries in Europe in talking to governments to understand what their approach is going to be to extended producer responsibility, to get the balance right. I would say UK is one where we struggled the most, to be honest with you. I think Germany is good. I think there's a number of Eastern European countries where we're doing better. And I think there's also still, and that is why we spend a lot of time at DS Smith, we have a target of educating 5 million people in the circular economy in Europe. There's still that real gap in understanding in the consumer. What is it that you need to do with your materials in the home? Finally, I'd say there is the challenge that with many people now shopping online, the cardboard are in people's homes, in apartments, in urban areas, and recycling infrastructure is not equipped to manage that and to collect cardboard and keep it in the best possible condition to recycle the fibers 20 times. I mean, it is a huge challenge and one we'll continue to work with. But I think progressive policy is helpful, but it's an area we need to continue to work on.
Okay, Greg, thank you. Now to Gustavo, and again from João Martins. Do you think market is ready to pay an extra cost for a new coming sustainable materials?
Thank you for that. That's an easy one, actually. Yes, absolutely yes. Development now 3 years ago was done on optimization, cost-driven thing. And nowadays, sustainability, environmental awareness, now COP26, it's all over us. So absolutely, the brand owners and companies are willing to pay a premium. The question is, for how long will they be able to pay a premium? That's the better question. No, because they do expect also that economy of scale starts kicking in as new solutions become better and more available. So that is actually the question that I do not know how to answer for how long. But at this point in time, yes, the price and the cost is not the driver for innovation.
Thank you, Gustavo. And now a question for Greg from João Martins again. Greg, can you explain in more detail the KPI optimized supply chain?
Sure. There's a number of different ways we look at that. One that we've been looking at for the longest is what we call performance packaging. So it's optimizing fiber. As we know, packaging used to be sold and still is in some areas by the weight of the box, the weight of the packaging. And we take the approach that it has to be the best performing packaging. So how much fiber can we take out of the package whilst maintaining its strength and abilities? So we use a lot of design in that, and we basically target removal of as much fiber as possible to keep it lightweight but strong. And I think over the last probably 7 years, we've reduced our fiber in our packaging by up to 30%. So that's one area. Certainly palletization, how we can limit space, how we can design space out, how we can be more efficient with our palletization. We have a target that is almost the conclusion or the output of that challenge. We targeted ourselves with removing 250,000 lorries off the road. So when a big customer comes into one of our design centers, we will work through the palletization. We have a lorry, a trailer in our centers, and we'll keep designing the packaging and the pack sizes until we optimize. if we save their space, you know, if our new approach saves them 8%, for example, of space on the lorry, that gets accumulated into our macro target of removing 250,000 lorries off the road. So again, that's another area. And then finally, empty space. So particularly with e-commerce, we target removing empty space in packaging. Again, that's more difficult to measure. Some parts of the world and some customers are easier to measure than others, but that is our third metric that we look at.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Now we have a question, and I ask Outi to give us first answer to this question because it's a more general question, and it was original to Gustavo, but I would like to have another opinion from this point. And it's coming from Ferreira, and he asked, how do you see the utilization of recycled versus virgin fiber in packaging when food safety and preservation is considered crucial, I guess? Outi, do you have any opinion about this packaging and health and food and safety and all this stuff?
Yes, thank you. I do. I think first of all, both type of fibers are needed to start with. So we need virgin fibers to the system, but we also need efficient recycling systems, like we have discussed today. And obviously, we have to bear in mind that for food packaging, we basically have 3 different types of packaging. We have the primary packaging, which is in direct contact with food. We have the secondary packaging, which is the retail-ready packaging, and then we have the transportation packaging. And then we have, even within the foods, we have peelable and non-peelable fruits and veg. So I think there's a place for everything. And of course, I think everybody who is in this industry understands the importance of food safety, the importance of consumer safety. So I think it's the beauty of fiber-based packaging, that there's a solution for everything, and you can utilize it in the way you want, based on the raw material you want. So I think both are needed, and the food safety is clearly the key priority in this industry.
Thank you, Outi. And the question was to Gustavo. So Gustavo, now you have your chance to.
That was a great answer. No, it's
food
absolutely.
Safety, virgin and recycled.
Absolutely great answer from Outi. I mean, there's a room for everything. And yes, now having a virgin fiber makes it easier, makes it more consistent to control the safety aspects of it. So it is, in my opinion, a preferred primarily for primary packaging. It makes it a little bit easier, but there is room for everything. So this is, of course, actually safety is the #1 concern. I mean, we all talk about packaging, and we all need to say, oh, we need to reduce or we need to recycle. No, but the fact is we cannot live without it. Now, living without packaging and protection of goods is something that we cannot afford. We have to protect food because we are ever growing. I think Greg brought that out. We're expected to reach 11 to 12 billion people by 2050. So food preservation is #1. Second is food safety, #2. And then, of course, we got to do both of these in the best environmental possible way. So I think, as Outi answered, primary packaging, using virgin fiber makes it a lot easier, makes it a more controllable process for everybody. But secondary, tertiary packaging, then recycling is a great way to go, in my opinion.
Thank you. Now I have a question from João Martins to all of you, and we'll start with Manuel Delgado. And João Martins is asking, what are the key aspects of a company's strategy to be successful on future packaging market? Manuel, do you have an opinion on this on this area? You need your microphone, please.
Okay.
Okay. Now I can hear you.
Yeah, answer. The strategy of the group is promote the sustainable production of the coreboard and about this. We promote in this moment the circular economy. For example, if producer of milk, we make the pallets of the packets of milk. For this pallet, we need an interlayer or a sheet for anti-slip to stabilize the pallet. The idea is Papeleira talk with that supplier, pick the whole paper of our process, of our packaging, coming here with that paper to recycle the paper, and in the end offer the interlayers to use in your logistic products. That is the idea, and is a possible application that strategy in different suppliers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. Outi, what do you think is the key of success for being a successful company in packaging market?
I think we have had the joy today to hear from three very successful companies in this front, and each of them have taken a little bit different route. So we start from Gustavo, obviously a lot of innovation, talking to the brand owners, focusing on different niches in the market. Then we heard about DS Smith, which is one of the great leaders in the not only in Europe but also in the global fiber-based packaging, and then Manuel represents a local solution, a company who has found its niches in the local markets and working with the local raw materials. So I think focusing on what you know is obviously the key in every business, and then talking to the end customers. I think Greg had a beautiful example how they started thinking about from the outside. So stepping to the shoes of your end customers and stepping to the shoes of the end customers of your end customers. So that's probably meaning mostly consumers. I think that is probably the key. And I think this industry has gone a long way from just doing things in the lab to doing things for the market.
No. Okay, Gustavo, what is the key to success?
Three words: innovation, sustainability, and resilience. I think now innovation, sustainability. I think it's straightforward, whether in that order or the next. So I don't think I'm going to explain that. But I want to talk about resilience. I think Greg mentioned in his presentation. We have never seen a pull like ever in the history of mankind for sustainable and more environmentally friendly solutions as we do now. And the fact is, companies need time to evolve. So we do need to have this resilience. Now, it is very easy that brand owners want solutions and they want them yesterday. They don't necessarily want them cheaper, as we've talked about. That's a good thing. But now they are in a rush. And legislation, like single-use plastics, is the fastest legislation and guidelines to ever have been approved at the European Commission. So the pressure is absolutely on, and it's on in our industry. And we are actually no longer competing amongst ourselves. We are competing with the Exxon Mobiles and the plastic producers. So we need a little bit of resilience. No, the brand owners need a little bit of patience, and we're learning as we're going. But innovation and sustainability are the two pillars, in my opinion.
Thank you, Gustavo. Greg, do you want to give us your highlight about?
Well, they're all good, aren't
they? To be
they?
Successful.
Everybody's answered very well, and I think Outi described it well. There's a new relationship with packaging. It's now everyday life, and the consumer is really very aware of what we do. You could argue whether we're B2B anymore. I don't think so. So if we are to really stay ahead, and to Gustavo's point, legislation around single use is actually heading towards corrugated in Spain in the next few years. If we're to stay ahead, we must be curious, and we must really understand the way the world is changing and what consumers want, I think, and that will help us advise customers and provide the right products and services. That's it.
Okay, Greg. Thank you. I think now we have another question from João Martins. Are the existing technologies capable of delivering the new packaging products we need, or there is still a big technology gap? I guess he's thinking about plastics and replacing all this 40% of business that Outi was explaining to us that is coming from plastics. To take care of this share, there's still a technology gap there's technological things that we need to do, or the technology is already there. It's just a question of putting things together, innovating a little bit. Greg, probably you can start.
Sorry, the answer.
Okay.
The answer is no. We're probably not there. I think there's lots we need to do. We're looking at barriers made from seaweed, for example. You know, and there's a huge amount of work to do. I don't think, certainly from our perspective, I don't think this type of research is what we have generations of experience in. This is new. The requirements on us are changing, and they're very demanding. And I would say even from digital printing all the way through to creating new barrier technology, I think we've got a huge amount to do. I think we need to talk to governments and understand how we can collaborate, how we can innovate together. Many industries that, of course, collaborate together. We don't do that very well as an industry. Open collaboration is not open innovation is not a thing in our industry. So I think there's a lot for us to do.
Thank you. Gustavo, I have a question here from Ferreira. How do you see the use of short fibers, namely eucalyptus, on packaging solutions where tear and bursts, for example, are vital?
Yeah, okay.
It's a too technological question, but anyhow, go ahead.
Yeah, I think eucalyptus has its role to play. Absolutely, it's a good fiber. And the Portuguese market does a wonderful job with it. Now, Portuguese are really experts in how to handle and bring out the most out of eucalyptus, which is good. Absolutely. I mean, yes, it's not known to be the strongest furnish, but it does actually allow to get a more closed-based paper, smoother-based papers, now, which for barrier applications is actually quite critical and important. So there is absolutely room for it. There is going to be a balance between it. It depends from application to application. But definitely there is, I believe there's a very big room for it, an opportunity for it.
Thank you. Now from Gabriel to Gustavo. You mentioned you want to produce chemicals from sugars and lignin. Can you give more insights about both those initiatives?
Gabriel invited me to this conference and said, let's come talk about packaging. And now he asks me a question that is not about packaging. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for this.
He wants to extract something from you, huh?
I can try, but I'm not really the expert. I'm not really working for this. Now, this is happening, and you read in the news, actually, a lot of forest-based companies are looking into developing chemistries from biomass, from trees. So there's actually a lot of work being done. Sappi has started a pilot plant for sugar production. We already actually sell lignin for different applications. Stora Enso has announced a lot of different innovations recently around their lignin portfolio and Lineo. So I think there's a lot to come. This is going to be, it's an evolution, not a revolution. So this development will take time. It will take decades. So I think that there's a lot of things, a lot of cool things happening, and 10 years from now, we will be living in a very different world. I cannot give you actually a lot of more insight than that.
Thank you, Gustavo. Outi, during this several presentations, we talk in one side about redesigning the packaging, and Greg talked about that. And Manuel was talking about how to recycle difficult papers coming from packaging. The future is where? Is on developing technologies to recycle difficult things, or is to make life easy for everybody and redesign the packaging? How do you see this, Outi?
I think it's both. If we look at, obviously the key question is that if there are any substances that are hard to separate, but I think the industry has already done quite a lot of work in there. We have beautiful recycling centers, for example, UK for cups, which James Cropper is then using the recycled cups. We have Tetra Pak plants all over Iberia using recycling milk cartons. So those technologies are in place and also developing. On the other hand, we have also examples where, for example, in plastic flexible packaging, companies are going towards more and more towards monomaterials or more simplified materials. But like Greg said and Gustavo said, there's a lot of work still to be done. But industry is really addressing these questions because let's put it that way, the fiber-based industry has done it so well already in recycling. So our recycling rates are really high and only the very difficult substances are left.
Okay, thank you. Greg, a question from Mario Amaral. I guess you know this gentleman.
I think I have heard of Mario before.
You have an idea.
Hello, Mario. It's good to hear.
A packaging paper, 100% virgin fiber, is being launched in Portugal. It advertised that it is an alternative to 100% recycled paper, arguing as an advantage that it does not contain the hazardous substances that exist in recycled paper. How do you comment on this statement?
Well, again, I'm not a technical expert, but my understanding is there are from our processes, there aren't hazardous chemicals or materials in there. I don't know whether that's implying that there are through recycled contaminated materials. I don't know. I think if the question is, what do I think about the tactic of advertising this? Mm-hmm. I would say let's see what the reaction is. I'm never one to respond to advertising claims unless they are really getting momentum. So I don't know technically. I think we're pretty I wouldn't envisage us having hazardous materials in our recycling process. The campaign itself, I wouldn't imagine it would get huge traction, but if it does, we would respond accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Thanks.
Gabriel is asking a question, I guess, to all of you. So the one that is more ready to answer, please tell me, is what about molded pulp products, virgin or recycled? Is this an opportunity for the present companies? Is there somebody with an answer for this? Greg?
I think it's an opportunity. I think we need to do more work on it. I certainly think there's a huge market, but we would need to refine our innovation around it. I think we've got work to do.
Outi,
it's very interesting, very interesting.
Thank you. Outi, do you have any comment on molded pulp?
Yes, I think this is again an example of innovation because that can be used in very many kind of applications, and now it has increased. I mean, traditionally has been used based on recovered fiber. Now is also being used based on virgin fiber, and it has been used in food catering and replacing plastic plates, for example. The other beauty of molded fiber is that when we talked about how can companies come into packaging market, that is, I would say, a very low investment, low capex, small scale alternative, and usually the markets are close by. So if somebody is willing to try to go to the new businesses, finds a customer nearby, that is an excellent way to make a small step and see how that works. But definitely the molded fiber has kind of a let's say resonance profile. It's not just egg packaging. It's all kind of different kind of applications, even for consumer electronics and things like that. Taking, again, because it's moldable, taking market from plastics.
Gustavo, do you have any comment about molded pulp, or?
I agree with what Outi and Greg said. I mean, it's something that it has potential. It has not really flourished. This is one of the technologies where the gap is a little bit higher. To go back to the question that João Martins, I think, asked earlier, I think in some fields the technological gap might not be that big, but in other applications it is bigger. And we all want to have a job again in 10 and 20 years. The industry wants to be there, so I think we all need to look into those. Depending on the application, again, even looking only at molded pulp, depending on the application field. Now, are we talking about molded pulp that needs barrier or not? The fact that it's a 3D formed material makes barrier development more complicated, but there are interesting developments out there. So definitely, I think something that again in 5 to 10 years will have a very different reality than today.
Manuel, molded pulp is not an issue for you so far.
I beginning to make some analysis of that process. The question, because in this moment in Papeleira we have over of production of pulp for the paper machine, and we have the opportunity to install here a small machine to mold the pulp. The product we have studied is the vase for the plants, for example, for the eucalyptus and peanuts. For make that product, it's easy. Not easy important the composition of the pulp. The raw material is the same of the coreboard, but I have studied the machines to make that. And the problem is the capacity of production of the machine exists in the market very slowly, and the system for dry the molded pack it's very expensive. In this moment, the technology not is very positive to invest in that process.
Okay, thank you. A question to Greg. You talk generally about innovation, and I'm curious about DH Smith. And where do you, let's say, to design a new product, where do you do this? You do it in UK, in Spain, in US, everywhere? Where really are the people thinking about and the design in new products?
Yeah, well, we design packaging in most of our major countries. So we have design centers: Portugal, Spain, Italy, France, Germany, UK, North America, and we're bespoke. So we will talk to customers and actually try and understand their challenges, and then work with them and bring the customer in and design alongside them. And we have sort of longer term horizon type innovation and technology we develop more centrally in the UK, but certainly packaging we can innovate all over the world.
Thank you. And Gustavo, Sappi is different from DH Smith. You have a broad activity with dissolving pulp, with other things, but packaging, where do you design packaging? Is everywhere? Is centrally? Is what do you do this? Just curiosity from the audience.
Yeah, fantastic question. So Sappi has 3 big regions: South Africa, North America, and Europe, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. Actually, packaging at this point is mostly being led from a European point of view. I think, as Outi mentioned earlier, the big growth is indeed in Asia markets. However, the awareness is mostly at this point in Europe. So Europe is the great trial field for new innovations when it comes to packaging, because in Europe, people are willing to pay more, which is now connecting to the other question, which is probably not necessarily true for example, in Africa. So at this point, Sappi Europe driving a lot of these developments, followed closely by Sappi North America, and Sappi South Africa is actually then a little bit further behind and taking the innovations more from Europe.
Thank you. Outi, in the old days, when talking about packaging, we are talking about long fiber, and short fiber had no place on this packaging business. As we saw today, in Portugal, there's people producing eucalyptus fiber and fighting for the player in the packaging market. How do you see the use of short fiber and long fiber as raw material for packaging? I'm talking about virgin fiber, of course, not the recent one.
Okay. Well, first of all, there's a place for both, and obviously they are used a bit for different reasons. And when we talk about packaging and we talked about consumers, we talk about what kind of printability on or you want, and obviously the short fibers are really good when we go to high quality packaging, we go to the printability side of the things, but they also have proven to be quite versatile, and I think you all probably know that your dear friends in Brazil, so Klabin is now introducing a eucalyptus 100% eucalyptus based linerboard to the market, and again, innovation based on the raw material available, and of course eucalyptus you can do a lot of clones. I think the beauty in short fibers and especially eucalyptus is that you can do clones. We also have other products where short fibers are actually preferred. We here in Scandinavia of course have a lot of birch, and birch is one of the best raw materials for making paper cups. So yes, there's a market for short fibers. Of course long fibers are needed for strength, and they can be recycled. So I think, again, like for virgin fiber and recycled fiber, there's a market for both short and long virgin fibers.
Thank you, Outi. Now, I guess it will be the last question, is about plastic. I'm in this the world of pulp and paper since 40 years or 50 years. And from time to time, we talk about plastics. Now I think is the right time to talk about plastics. But how do you see the reaction of the plastic industry? Is the plastic industry reacting? Because probably they will not be wait and see. They will act. I can start by Greg. Greg, what do you think about the reaction of what are they reacting in order to keep the market, of course, and not lose the market to the fiber-based industry?
Yeah, I know, I'm sure they are reacting, and they seem to be putting a huge amount of investment into R&D, which is clearly their opportunity. I think they will react. I've been quite surprised how quiet the reaction has been.
Okay.
I've come from different industries where industries would fight back harder and faster, if not in the product itself, at least in the narrative and rhetoric. But it's been quite slow reaction to me. But I know they're obviously putting hundreds of millions into R&D for the future.
Okay, thank you, Outi. What do you expect from the plastic industry as a reaction to this to the present situation, where we can be the winners, let's say?
Well, I think obviously there are some products and markets where plastic definitely has its role, and they are preferred, like discussed in for example in Asia Pacific, in some applications. I think what they are at the moment doing mostly is of course getting their act together and really working towards the recycling, working towards one of the key problems in plastic recycling is that they are so many different kinds of polymers being used, and quite often they are using, for example, in flexible packaging, multi-layers of polymers, and the sorting systems. They are really putting their act together in recycling, not only mechanical recycling, but also chemical recycling. So I do see that they have quite a lot of work to do. They are lagging behind the fiber-based packaging industry in recycling. So I hope that they get their act together, and I do hope that there's a market for both the solutions.
Thank you. I have another question from Marta Lopes. Maybe Gustavo can help me on this answering this question. Which has greatest growth potential in packaging mold? Is packaging molded pulp or formable paper?
Good question. I'm not 100% sure what Marta Lopes means by formable paper. If we're talking about paper that we can 3D...
Neither I. So it's the reason why I ask you.
Yeah. So thank you for now throwing the hot potato to me now. If by formable paper we are talking about paper that we can now have deep creases, and now like fiber form, for example, I think they will both have their niches. And now I think if I understand what is meant by formable paper, molded pulp will have or has the potential to have deeper 3D structures than a formable paper. So they will have their niches. I mean, molded pulp, as Manuel also said, it's a technology that is quite young. It's still quite expensive. The throughputs and the efficiencies are low. Formable paper in that sense is more efficient. So I think they will both have a little bit of their own niches. It's a little bit of a vague answer, but.
Thank you. Outi, do you have any idea about this question from Marta Lopes?
I think it's like Gustavo said, there's a market for both, and I think again here the key is that you first of all make the efficiency, but even before that you find your end customer and you develop the product together. So I think again both these products have their own markets, and formable paper, obviously, if it's being used from virgin, it can be a direct contact with like takeaway packaging or takeaway food packaging. Molded pulp, again, very versatile material. You can basically use any kind of raw material you like. So they have their own pros and cons, if you like.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's now time for close this session. To thank all our speakers. You have behaved externally. Your presentation has been very good, and I think the audience has been very happy listening to all of you. I would like also to thank Tecnicelpa for the opportunity for all of us to get together and to have this chance to meet even using these IT systems, which are not so friendly as being really together around the table. So thank you very much to all of you. Just remember the audience that tomorrow at 4 p.m. London time or Lisbon time, as you want, we have the fourth session. It will be shared by Teresa Presas, and we will have Carlos Pascoal Neto, Gabriel Souza, David Bolson, Paulo Pereira da Silva. So it will be our last session, and it will be about innovation on pulp and paper. And by today, we end this session. Thank you very much. For me, it was a pleasure to meet all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nicely organized.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.